get me. You get my back.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Micheal, who is also the host of his own show, The Rational Egoist. We have a hard out today at 12:45, I guess, Eastern Time, 9:45 Pacific Time, because Michael's got to go to the dentist. He's got to get his teeth fixed. He's going to get that chip taken care of.
No.
No?
This is the first time I've been to the dentist in like 3 years. So
You're going to go and you're going to get all that plaque, bricks of plaque chipped off.
yes.
You should be, by the way, you should be going to the dentist at least 2 to 3 times a year.
Well, yeah, the problem is I've been busy. So I don't have a dentist. So I finally got one. I didn't take the extra time to go find one, but I did it now.
Okay, that's good. Well, folks, since we have truncated time today, we're going to try to get as much information as possible in as short a time as possible. I have to give our disclaimer. What we say here today does not necessarily represent the American Capitalist Party's perspective. It is just our individual perspectives as capitalists talking about the news of the day. Also, I want you guys to know, for those of you who have subscribed to my Patreon and been wondering, like, whoa, the past year, Mark hasn't been very active on there. And I had a great series going on there about the intersection of psychology and philosophy and how those things help your life. But then I ran out of interviewers, but two, I also started helping my wife with the movie that she wrote, produced, and directed, and I acted in. And that became rather consuming for a couple of months. However, we are now going to resume this show on the intersection of psychology and philosophy with my esteemed colleague, Micheal Leibowitz. We will be, we're going to discuss how often we're going to do it, but there's going to be a lot of content going on Patreon now. So, and we will encourage lots of discussion, because this will be an interactive show, since we'll be talking about psychology and philosophy, the intersection of the two, and how your life can be improved by the right philosophy. We want people to engage with us, talk with us, and discuss their own individual problems. We are not therapists. We just want you to know that right out of the gate. But we will discuss what we think has been helpful to us, and what we think can also be helpful to you. Was there something else I was supposed to? Was there something?
Well, it's not going to be any politics. This is not a politics show. It's basically going to be how to apply philosophy to improve your lives. That's what we're going to be dealing with, and we're going to have a lot of good examples. I think you're going to like the show. But Mark, it's going to take a few weeks, right, before we can actually get started.
Yes, my wife is coming home literally tomorrow. I thought she was coming home Sunday. Thank God I talked to her today. She's coming home tomorrow. And she's going to be here until about the 3rd week of August. So we're going to probably pick up the new show the 3rd week of August or the very first week of September. So be prepared for that. Also, a bit unrelated, but also related to my Patreon, I'm going to be starting a horror cinema club there. I will be writing horror cinema reviews. I will be, we'll have, like monthly, I think, get-togethers where we get on Zoom and maybe watch a horror movie together and have a vigorous discussion afterwards about what the horror movie potentially means. If you're interested in that, if you're a cinephile, if you like horror, you can join the Patreon, and that's going to be another part of my Patreon content, and that's going to be a regular thing, because I don't need anybody else to do that. And with the psychological philosophy stuff, I got Mike, and Mike is here.
I'm here.
So first of all, what I want to deal with, speaking of psychology and philosophy, is an article that Micheal sent me today, which for some reason I thought was yesterday, but maybe because Cody woke me up at 2:00 in the morning for his dinner, and I am suffering from travel brain. From Psychology Today, the title of this is "For Pain Relief, Schadenfreude or Altruism? It's Your Choice." Now, the premise of the article is that Schadenfreude, which means you enjoy seeing other people suffering, you get a little bit of a boost from that emotionally, but of course it has later downsides. And altruism, of course, according to this article, is simply service to others, and how good that makes you feel all across the board. Of course, I think this is a very poor formulation. I'm going to assume that Micheal thinks the same, that this is a poor formulation. But I'm going to let Micheal speak first before I give my perspective about this, because I'm very interested in hearing what he thinks about this alternative, because I think it's a slightly false alternative.
It's not slightly false, it's entirely false, because they present this as either by being jealous of others, wanting others to fail, or you have to serve others, and that will. I hate when you get up and walk away. It makes me feel like I'm talking to nobody. But and I'm developing Schadenfreude over your walking away. I may be hoping you trip,
My
and that'll
dog
make
is
me
the
feel
most
better.
In my life, and I had
to okay. So, and anyways, back to the idea. The idea here is it's a false dichotomy that either you're envying others or serving others. They, of course, don't present the option of being an individualist, where you like to see others succeed. You want to see others succeed, so you're not jealous of them, but you also don't see yourself as having to sacrifice for others to be happy. There's also an error that I think is made here, and that he jumps right into Schadenfreude and altruism, but he doesn't actually discuss the role of values in the equation. Because, of course, if I adopt the moral code of altruism and I say it's a value to me to serve others, then because that's my belief, when I act on it, I'm going to feel better. Similar to if my values are to see others fail, and they do, then I'm going to feel good about it. But if my values are those of an individualist, then doing the best I can for myself, rooting for others, helping, individualism does not rule out helping people, and thank God, because otherwise I'd be doomed with all the help I've received. But it does mean that we don't sacrifice ourselves for other people, and we don't just give out help randomly to every schmuck that comes down the pike. We help those that we care for, that we want to see succeed, that share our values, that sort of thing. So that is basically why I sent you the article. I was interested to get your take on it.
Mine is pretty much the same. I would say that, of course, they don't define altruism properly. They simply define it as service to others. And we know that altruism is sacrificing higher values for lesser values, and that there can really be no happiness when you're sacrificing something of a higher, more intimate value to yourself for something that is a lesser value or a non-value. I think also they confuse this concept of they confuse the concept of service with others for value creation. Now, when you're creating values and you're a productive individual, people don't understand that it's not just material remuneration that you get for producing values. You get a psychological lift from being productive, from being active in the world, and from seeing the consequences of your productivity and activity in the world. And that's very natural. So and we live in a quote unquote service economy where the idea of this principle, the service principle, the trader principle, is that I create values and exchange them for values that you have created, that we mutually value greater. And that's why we exchange with each other. So it completely misnames the problem. It misnames the solution, which is value creation, which gives you self-esteem, and claims that it is under the rubric of a moral code that it isn't. Now,
hold on 1 second. I just want to say something about what you just said.
Yeah.
It gives you self-esteem if your values are rational. Because if you think of somebody like a Hank Rearden, if you think that it's evil to produce, or you think success is some kind of a sin, or that it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy man, yes, then you're going to feel guilty, unearned guilt, by the way, for doing what's right. I just want to give a quick shout out to Megan Ribbons. She says she loves horror movies for all the wrong reasons. I think it's supposed to be. But really what I want to do is just tell the audience I had a wonderful interview with Megan yesterday, and it will be out Monday. I think everybody should tune in for that. It's wonderful. Sorry to interrupt, Mark. But
I'm not the biggest fan of the cornball horror movies, although those will have a place in our cinemaphile viewings. I like I like real horror movies that are psychological thrillers and actually are
That's what
actually
I like too.
well-made films in and of themselves. But there's a place for cornball horror movies, and we can have that. We can have that too because they can be fun. But I wanted to say the other thing, the envy culture, the Schadenfreude thing, that it makes you feel good to see somebody else fall. This is something that seems to be predominating in our culture, and this is what we at the Capitalist Party are actually trying to combat. We're trying to combat a culture of envy and replace it with a culture of admiration and aspiration. Those are the things that make you happy, folks. I know we're told oftentimes that this the insatiability of the human spirit, that you're always reaching, that you're never quite where you want to be, you're always this potential trying to actualize, can be frustrating for people, and so they try to lower the bar and say accept yourself for who you are. Well, now there is certainly truth to the fact that you have to accept what and who you are at the moment, but don't stick there or stay there. Understand that you are where you are, but that you are an aspirational person who wants to be better. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's very healthy for you to be that way. The other alternative is to stick where you are and to hate others who have surpassed you. That's unhealthy. And that's the kind of environment that we live in today. That's the kind of environment that seems to be winning out, let's say, in New York City right now with the socialist candidate who's promising people things that he can't possibly deliver, but certainly off of the backs of those who have more and have done more than those who want the values. So let's produce a culture of aspiration, that
Yes.
service-oriented culture that is not altruistic. It's quite selfish, folks. It's you pursuing values for your own sake, and it happens to benefit other people greatly on a psychological level and on a material level. So I'm glad we straightened out psychology today.
I want to add something.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, is going to maybe be a indication of the type of thing we'll be talking about on our show. So while I think that envy is a bad thing, Schadenfreude is a bad thing, I hope people watching because what can end up happening is if I've had a lifetime where these values have been drilled into my head, and then I get that emotion of envy, that's an automatic reaction to the values I've already adopted. And then I can end up beating myself up for feeling the envy. And so all I've done now is it's like a double damage to my self-esteem. So if you do feel these kind of emotions, envy, hatred of the good, that sort of thing, the thing is not to beat yourself up. What the thing to do is to change your values, rationally reprogram your mind to accept proper values, and then the emotional change will come. But beating yourself up over it is not the way to go.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point because all of us are going to feel a little bit of. I sometimes I think it's not envy; it's jealousy. And envy is such a dark, dark, dark emotion. It means you want the person dead. Like you don't want what they have, right? You want to destroy them as a being. That's a
Yes.
very different. That's what I think I see pervading the culture today. Now that's different from, oh, look at that person, they're so much far ahead of me, and we started at the same time, and oh my god, that really hurts. I mean, I had a little bit of that feeling, for example, when we had our belt promotion ceremony. Now the belt promotion ceremonies in jiu-jitsu are normally very informal things. You just get the belt when the teacher decides it's time, and all of a sudden you have a belt that you didn't realize you were going to get. But sometimes they're formal affairs where a number of people are promoted simultaneously. And my buddy Brian, he's a good friend of mine now. He got promoted to a 6-stripe white belt, right? We were white belts at the time. And he was the last guy to get promoted. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't get a promotion. Inside, I was like devastated that I didn't get promoted. I wasn't envious. I didn't want Brian dead, but I wanted what he had. I wanted 6 stripes on my white belt. I'd never had 6 stripes on my white belt. But I stood up and I hugged him and gave him the love that he deserved because he works hard for what he got. And then it happens that I get promoted to blue belt, which is even higher than that. So, of course, I cried like a baby because I didn't expect that to happen. I thought I was going to be overlooked, but I was preparing myself mentally for the fact that I would be overlooked. Just like if there's belt ceremonies today, I would be preparing myself for the fact that I have to rest in blue belt for a long time, and that's just the way it's going to be. And that lack, I'm not trying to tell people to not have expectations, but when you just sort of have a real expectation, when you understand where you sit in the world in relation to other people, and your expectations are not, they're not stupid, they're not out of touch, they're not irrational, you won't really be disappointed, and you won't be unhappy for people who progress. In fact, you'll understand that those people who are progressing are your friends. They're helping you, especially in an academy, a jiu-jitsu academy, where it's a family of people. These people who are better than me make me better. And in the economy, people who are more energetic than you, who are smarter than you, who are more inventive and innovative than you, there's nothing to be envious about, because that person is helping you. They're giving you gifts. Now you exchange a certificate for it that we call a dollar, but what they've given you in exchange for that dollar is far more than the dollar's worth. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given it to them. I exchanged that dollar for that iPhone, but what do I get? I get AI. I get access to every bit of information in the world, news the world over. I get to communicate with anybody in the world practically for free at any time that I want to. That is an unprecedented level of access to information that has never happened in the history of civilization. So let us not envy the people who are at the top, but admire them for the values that they create. Admire them to the extent that we want to as to our best of ability, imitate that. Whatever enables them to create that kind of value, produce that kind of energy, keep that kind of mental acuity. Let's admire those qualities and try to bring them out in ourselves. Now, we may not reach the heights that they reach. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But you'll be better off for trying, and you'll be happier for trying. That's my humble point of view. So we got Trump here signing a bill, my friend. This might take a second to come up because the Epoch Times always makes me sign in for some reason, even though I receive the Epoch Times in hard copy, and I receive it. Online as well. There's no reason I have to keep checking in every single time. Trump signed a bill strengthening penalties for fentanyl trafficking. Now, fentanyl is the new, what would you call this thing? You know how they always use kids to justify
Everything.
every intrusion of American liberty, and every moral justification for taking more of your stuff. Well, now it's fentanyl that is the culprit, the silent culprit. What do you think of this increasing penalties for fentanyl trafficking?
I think it's palpably absurd. I think it will likely have the opposite effect that they're intending it to have. It'll probably lead to more overdoses, not less overdoses, because of the iron law of prohibition. This leads to, them to want to smuggle different drugs in and things that are easier to get in than fentanyl, which likely will be more tightly compact and, more powerful. So I think it's horrible. I think it's, also an assault on individual rights, the war on drugs itself. I think we should be dialing it back, not ramping it up. And I posed a question about this today. The libertarians were all about endorsing Donald Trump. Not, I shouldn't say the libertarians, some libertarians. And the goal was, one of them, to release Ross Ulbricht from prison. Ross Ulbricht went to prison over his Silk Road website, which was basically, from what I understand anyways, an online site where people could facilitate drug deals. So, I asked them, is it worth it? You've endorsed Trump so that you can get Ross out. Well, is Ross's freedom worth more than all the people that are going to suffer because of this law? Because that's what he's doing. And he announced it in advance. It's not like this is a surprise. He announced in advance that he was going to be ramping up the war on drugs. He, of course, didn't use that language, but that's what he wanted to do. He wants to bomb cartels in Mexico, that sort of thing, get tough on fentanyl.
He's declaring them terrorists, by the way, so that he can probably
increase government power. But the bottom line is, I don't know why people don't learn the lessons of alcohol prohibition. And we seem to just be so dense as people that we just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And it can be exhausting, to be quite honest with you.
It is exhausting, and it even mentions in the article that to get around some of these new laws and regulations, they're producing different types of fentanyl. They're producing different chemical combinations that are actually far more potent. So, as usual, a government regulation or a law that restrains trade usually creates a worse problem, for which the government solution is to create more laws and more restraints of trade and more prohibitions that in turn create greater problems, and it becomes a total clusterfuck for the rest of us. Please don't forget to like or subscribe to this channel, folks. If we have a like deficit, please fix that now. And please also remember to share this from YouTube to other social platforms, so that this message of freedom and liberty and aspirational values can get out there to the world. We're done with determinism, folks. We're done with being told that we're weak, feeble, and fragile. We are not. We are strong, capable, and independent beings. That's right. Even those of you in the chat who are watching this and you're ill, you're physically disabled, you have more power than you know, and we are the party that will enable you to achieve your highest potential, because we're going to get out of your way and let you be you. So yes, they don't seem to be learning the lessons of precedents past, of prohibition past, how prohibition actually made the mafia an international crime syndicate, and how the prohibition of drugs right now has created extremely powerful paramilitary cartels that live on the border towns and actually control the governments of those border towns, and create great havoc. They've murdered lots of civilians, and are becoming a sort of militia or army that now would probably require military intervention if they don't stop this insanity of prohibition, which they probably won't unless a capitalist gets in office. But Trump is making good on his promises. He said he was going to make war on the drug cartels, and that's precisely what he's doing. It's also been part of his tariff incentives against Mexico and against China. They're not doing enough about the fentanyl crisis, according to him, and he's using this as leverage to try to squeeze these countries even more tightly than before. Also, there's an article from Axios that you sent me that I thought was very troubling, but we've been hearing about this in the news, and I think it's been sparking protests around the country. Non-criminal ICE arrests spiked in June. Now, go figure, Michael. When you arbitrarily raise a quota from, say, 1,000 to 3,000 human beings a month that you want incarcerated, you're now going to start, in the interest of filling that quota, you're going to start pulling in people that don't quite fit the description that you initially put out there to the people. And the American people have been told that the people that were going to be removed from the country were criminal aliens. Now, I know many people out there, especially in the MAGA movement, say that all of these people who came over illegal are committing a crime. We of course, disagree with that. But the people who were supposed to be taken off the streets were the gang members, the people who were apparently raping and engaging in child trafficking, sexual trafficking, and drug trafficking, and murder and assaults. Particularly of police officers and citizens, and robberies. Okay, so those people should probably be taken off the street. Not probably, taken off the street. They should be put through the court system. They should be tried, prosecuted, convicted, and deported. But now, somewhere in the neighborhood of 47% of the people that they're taking in are actually not committing crimes. Now, this is what happens when you sweep through Home Depot or a Jack in the Box, or randomly to take a brown person off the street, ask them if they're a citizen, or question them intensely about whether they're a citizen, and go to any other workplace, like a farm, and begin to try to fill your quota system that way. And we could have suspected this, since they're planning on building, in the neighborhood of 200 detention centers to hold 11 million human beings for processing to get out of the country, that the vast majority of those human beings have not committed any other crime other than moving from a worse place to a better place to try to improve their lives. Mike, what do you think of this insanity?
Well, let's look at it this way, right? So they do the same thing with traffic tickets, or at least they used to. I mean, I haven't, I'm not up to date all the time on it, but where you're expected to write in a certain amount or a quota of traffic tickets. So let's suppose that they now raise the quota of traffic tickets. Let's say they're supposed to write 50 on a shift and they change that to 100. Well, what do you think is going to end up happening? The initial claim might be, well, we need to cut back on these maniacs driving 80 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour on the highway. But if there's not that many people going 80, now you have to start writing tickets for people going 70, which in Connecticut is just 5 miles over the speed limit, 5 miles an hour.
Which is what, $5 for every mile you're over the ticket, isn't it? Isn't that?
I'm not sure, but I do know that when you do that, you're incentivizing people to start doing things that was beyond the intent of the original law. So if you're saying initially, which was absurd, whatever their amount is, we're going to get rid of, I don't know what it was, but let's say 1,000 a day, and they're all going to be hardened criminals. Well, there just aren't that many. So you're going to have to start going to other people. Now the goalposts shift, like you said. Well, they're all technically criminals because they came over the border. Yes, but that doesn't mean they're a threat to Americans. And that's the reasoning behind why you're saying you have to get rid of them, because they're dangerous. They're criminals. They're robbing. They're, stealing cars, damaging property, whatever. So it's and how anyone didn't know this was going to happen, I don't know. Like I'm often baffled by the degree to which people are surprised when this sort of thing happens. But nevertheless, if you are surprised, or if you were surprised, take a deep breath, reassess the situation, understand incentives, and just look at the history of government, for God's sake, and what happens. It's always gets to be more stringent in their rules and the applications of the rules. It very rarely gets rolled back. And even when it does, as in the case of the shoes at the airport, it's usually not for the reasons that they're claiming.
Indeed, I don't want my police officers to be taxmen. I don't think that's their responsibility. I want them to be, incarcerating people who hurt people and break things and take things from other people. I want them, there is certainly a place for them to be stopping people who are recklessly driving or driving while intoxicated, because they are a risk to the lives of other people. Now, it's a legitimate function of the police. But if I'm talking on my cell phone and I'm driving perfectly well and obeying every other law and not driving erratically, there's no reason in the world why I should be stopped and fined $150 for that. That's just a tax move on the part of the municipality. If I park in the wrong spot or something like that, where it's perfectly legitimate to park, I'm not clogging up traffic, I'm not blocking anybody's way, I'm not inhibiting an emergency vehicle from doing its job, that should also not be a legitimate means of raising revenue from me. So much of what the police do now are illegitimate, like so much of what the government in general does is illegitimate with respect to their actual job, which is to protect our rights and property, plain and simple. I remember I was pulled over because I happened to be on my phone.
Happened? You just happened to be on your phone?
This is like 4 years ago, just after the law came out where you couldn't put your cell phone to your ear.
Didn't you know it was dangerous before that? Like you needed a law?
Oh, no, but I never had any problems with it. Listen, the reason I want to tell you this is because it creates more danger not to put your phone. At one time, before they had all the hand-free technology, this is when I got busted, right? Before they had all the hand-free technology, people were texting still, but they were texting below the dashboard. And texting below the dashboard meant they're looking down and not paying attention to the road at all. So it actually created more of a hazard for people. Or they're hiding the fact that they're talking on the phone in such a way that impedes their ability to drive. I happened to be on the phone. This guy pulled me over, and when the window rolled down, I said, "Okay." He said, "Can I see your driver's license?" I said, "Who did I hurt? What property did I destroy?" "You haven't hurt anybody. You haven't destroyed any property." "Oh, was I driving erratically?" "No, you weren't." "Oh, then why are you pulling me over?" "Because you were talking on the cell phone." "But I wasn't driving erratically. Nobody was in danger. I wasn't endangering anybody." "You were talking on your cell phone. That's against the law." I said, "So you're the tax man today. You're not the police officer. You're the tax man." He said, "Give me your license and registration." and I had to pay a $150 fine. I thought I was going to get out of it. You see people online get out of it all the time by when they take the cops to task, they get out of it. This guy got me.
When?
This was right after they made the law that you
No, when are people taking cops to task and getting out of it?
Watch YouTube. Watch YouTube.
I don't need to watch YouTube. I've been dealing with cops since I was 5. I've never seen that work.
Yeah, well, of course it does. It actually does. I just did it wrong. So, like, I've seen cops pull guys over. The guys roll their window down a quarter of the way. The cop will say, "Let me see your driver's license." The guy will put his driver's license against the window. He'll say, "Can I have it, please?" He'll say, "Nope. You see my driver's license right here. This is what I'm obligated to show you." He will refuse to answer questions. He'll refuse to do anything that the cop asks him to do, and the cop eventually has to go away, especially when he asks for a supervisor.
It's all bullshit.
It's not bullshit.
Listen, that might happen in the YouTube video. So it happens once out of who knows how many times. Let me tell you, when I was 9 years old. I lived in a duplex in a housing project. And my friend and I, we had lit a piece of paper on fire, put the paper out, and I put it in the window.
Just before you know, Robert's busting my balls.
Okay, good. He should be. So I then put the piece of paper that was already out in the neighbor's window. The neighbors called the police. Now, we had been spray painting my shed. The neighbors called the cops, said I put a lit piece of paper in their window, which was a lie. It would be stupid. I lived in a duplex. I would have burned my house down. And they said that we were throwing spray paint cans at them, which also wasn't true. So my friend, both of us 9, come up. I was about to say the CO. The cop comes over. I said, "Excuse me, is there a problem, officer?" He says, "Don't try to sweet talk me, punk." I was 9. Right. So now he says, "What's your last name?"
Your energy, man. You were putting out that criminal energy.
Listen. So I tell him, he asked my last name. I tell him. He says, "Oh, well, that figures," a reference to my parents. He then grabs my 9-year-old friend and I, each by our shirt, lifts us off the ground and slams us into the shed. 9 years old. And that's how, and we were wicked polite.
That a bad cop.
It was horrible. But here's the funny thing. So now we go to file a complaint against this guy. Now, this guy happened to be from Korea, right? So we go to make the complaint, and the officer that takes my report says, "Well, Michael, he's from Korea. That's how they do things over there." I said, "Well, he's in America now." I was 9. And then he tells me, "Well, do you really want to hurt this guy and hurt his family?" Oh, man. Oh, I'm off on a tangent. I know. But my point is that getting your advice from YouTube on how to deal with police officers is not the way to go.
First of all, I had never seen the YouTube video before I did that. I was just experimenting on my own. The YouTube videos came later when I began to watch people who actually know the law. Now, Akira Felix is busting my balls too. The whole chat is busting my balls.
As they should.
Okay, as you're busting my balls, could you please hit the like and subscribe button, and also share this on YouTube, please, to other platforms. Listen, the people who actually make these videos, some of them do it with respect to gun carry. Some of them do it hold on a minute, with respect to traffic stops. They are people who actually know the law. They are lawyers who are, who know the law. Now, you can watch these videos yourself and judge for yourself whether or not they are authentic. I think I can tell an authentic video from an inauthentic video. But, there are people in the chat who think I can't and think I'm brainwashed because I'm some Hollywood guy.
You are some Hollywood guy. But this is typical Hollywood behavior. This is so absurd that you thought that you were going to get. First of all, in the situation that you're talking about, you were in clear.
Off before. I have got
Mark, you
a total and absolute prick to cops. And this time I was being rational. Anytime I'm rational with a cop, I don't get off. When I'm an absolute prick, I get off.
Listen,
I'm telling you.
Here's the problem. First of all, you're dealing with different cops. Wait a second. Let's back up here. How many interactions are you having with cops?
Not as many as you. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, because I've been out here almost 3 years. I've had none. Like, what's happening? And the thing is, you were breaking the law. Whether you agree with the law or not, you're on a cell phone.
When was the law that cell phones were made illegal?
I don't know, but you said it was against the law.
That's the last interaction that I've had with a cop. That was years ago. Now,
and it didn't go well.
On wood right now, because that could mean maybe I'll get in an interaction with a cop today. Who knows?
Oh my God, more superstition.
Come
Listen,
on.
no, listen. First of all, you were breaking the law. Whether or not you agree with the law is irrelevant. So the idea that you're breaking the law and then you're going to be a dick to the cop and he's going to let you go.
I'm breaking a stupid law that deserves to be broken, right?
Here's a question for you.
Yes,
Suppose a guy is.
No, it was an act of civil disobedience.
No. If a guy is at a stoplight, right? It's a red light. He stops to take a drink of vodka, right? The cop pulls. Whoa. The cop pulls him over. Hold on. The cop pulls him over and he tells the cop, wait a second, was I driving erratically? Am I speeding? And he says, no, you're drinking. That's breaking the law. And the guy says, yeah, but I wasn't doing anything else wrong. How do you think that would go?
You cannot compare
why not
cell phone to somebody with drinking a bottle of vodka. I'm
Why
sorry.
can't I?
Because in one condition, the person is actually impairing their judgment by drinking alcohol. In the other condition,
you're distracted driving.
I'm not distracted. I was
Mark,
exactly not distracted.
Need to listen. The problem is, I'm reading. Mark,
in fact, I saw the cop. I said, "Oh my God, he's probably going to pull me over because I was on an important phone call at the time that I had to take." And of course, he pulled in behind me. I said, "I'm fucked." I saw the whole thing happen. I wasn't distracted. I saw everything around me.
It doesn't. But so the guy taking the vodka can say the same thing
anymore because you're getting the entire crowd against me right now.
Because they're realizing this is what happened. Listen, folks, you're getting. Let me just say for the audience, you are getting a real live window into how the privileged class lives.
Look at you now, bringing up class.
I'm just saying. I mean, Diego makes a good point, though, back here. Let me see if I can find him, what he said here, because this is perhaps the best point I've seen in the chat.
Akira, bringing up a YouTube video is not absurd. I learn a lot from YouTube videos, by the way. I learn a lot of jiu-jitsu techniques from YouTube videos. I learn a lot of how to fix things from YouTube videos, by the way. YouTube videos, in and of themselves, are not stupid, and getting information from them is not necessarily stupid.
No, automatically accepting. No, it's not. But
I will do something to you.
But taking a YouTube video on how to deal with police when you're breaking the law.
I did not take the YouTube video at the time.
But you just cited it. I cited it.
I cited it as an after effect. Ex post facto, my friend. All right. It was not. It was after the fact.
Either way, folks, there's a couple lessons, folks. Do not drive with your cell phones to your ear. And if you do and get pulled over, do not listen to Mark Pellegrino.
I saw people interacting with cops in a way that I thought legitimately upheld their individual rights and put cops in their place and put boundaries around themselves that were actually legitimate. Now, I didn't know that at the time because I hadn't seen the videos at the time. Akira Felix. So that has nothing to do with it. I'm just talking about present day. I'm mixing present day with something that happened many years ago. And now this conversation is so far off track, and I want to get it back on track.
Well, they've told you, Lee says, Mark, at your age, you need to focus fully on the road and take your safety seriously.
I got you free merch yesterday. I got you today, and here you are.
I can't find the quote, but the last thing I will say is this: Diego says that the problem here is this was years ago when Mark was driving. Now he won't get pulled over because he's traveling in his jet. All
right,
we're running out of time. You're distracting me with your shenanigans here.
Look. I just got beaten by the entire crowd that you formed against me. You literally formed this entire crowd against me. They have been beating on me for the last 5 minutes, which I like. It's okay, folks. As long as you like and subscribe to this channel, it's perfectly fine to do that. I don't mind. Okay, I'm going to read you something from the Morning Dispatch, which I find disturbing. I got to tell you, I am not happy about the way Trump is dealing with Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, of course, as an American Capitalist Party member, I'm not speaking for the American Capitalist Party, but I think I can say the American Capitalist Party is against central banking. We are for a free banking system, which is different. The central banking system has caused pretty much, what is it? They've actually tallied it out, something like 150 or 160 financial crises since its actual formation. Just so that it's incredible. So the institution that was meant to stabilize currency and to stabilize the economy has actually caused a great deal of volatility and problems within the economy. Boom bust cycles that people blame on capitalism are actually a problem of expanding credit and and all of that. And well, so Powell right now is being apolitical. I think he's looking at the world and the velocity of money and the amount of money in the system and the amount of productivity in the system, and attempting to make logical decisions based on what the economic markers that they use are telling him, while Trump is pressuring him to lower interest rates. Now, Trump wants to stoke the economy. He wants it to look like there is a prosperous world out there, even though there are markers that are already starting to show a recessionary dip. Markers that are showing in less hiring, less businesses that can hire, and less product, and actually negative productivity. I think by 0.5% in this last quarter, we had a dip in productivity of 0.5%. Now that is a recessionary. That's a recessionary bit of information there, folks. So, of course, even though all the news is sterling coming out of Fox News, it's not really that way at the moment. And what Trump is trying to do is pressure the Fed into lowering interest rates so that will stimulate demand. Of course, this, as the Keynesians think, that is the way the economy works. Of course, it's not. It creates bubbles. It creates sometimes massive bubbles that have to burst at some point or another. The boom-bust cycle that sends us into a recessionary cycle. Now, this is not a natural cycle of capitalism. It is a cycle caused by the central banking system. And the way in which he deals with Powell is just so despicable and disgusting. I mean, he calls him terrible names. I mean, like knucklehead. I can think of worse things to call somebody, but he does call him a knucklehead. Here I said terrible things, a knucklehead. What's the big knucklehead? But he calls him, he says he's terrible. He says he's too late. He's constantly putting down. He's constantly personally attacking him. And he's threatening to replace him with somebody who will be another Trump yes man, which means artificially lowering interest rates so that those short-term interest rates don't represent anything with respect to money or productivity or actual capital. They represent Trump's wishes, which seems to be the way he likes things to be. Now, that will temporarily stoke a kind of boom sensibility as people take that new money and do stuff with it, right? And sometimes, oftentimes, invest in businesses and in enterprises that they ordinarily wouldn't if money were tighter, because they are ultra risky and probably doomed to failure. So this is a terrible scenario that he's putting Powell in. What do you think? I mean, I think this is just awful.
Well, I'm just about out of time, but I will say this, that it does concern me that he would fire this guy because he's not obeying his arbitrary whims. So while I am not a big fan of the Federal Reserve, I'm less a fan of having the president in charge of banking policy. And it's also, there's another article that's where Trump says, no, I'm not going to fire him. But the very fact that he puts this out there leads to uncertainty. And in a capitalist system, people need a level of certainty, and Trump is clearly interfering with that. I also saw a clip this morning, and people can look it up because I don't have it, but where Trump said, why the hell did Biden hire this guy? Why did Biden hire this guy?
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, but it was actually Trump that hired him. So there you go. Well, and we're also, we get mixed messages from the chat, whether they want us to deal with the chat. So I don't know what the hell to do. But either way, Mark, give us your capitalist thought of the day, because I need a teeth cleaning.
Oh, okay. Yes, you do. I can smell it from here, buddy. Look, you said it. You just said it in the last sentence. Capitalism requires certainty. That says something about capitalism. Unlike statism, which goes from moment to moment to moment to moment to pragmatic decision after pragmatic decision to whatever is politically expedient, the capitalist needs to plan his life for his enterprise over the long term. That means he has to be rational in his choices, and for that he needs predictability. That's why good property law enabled us to prosper to the extent that we've prospered today. That's why the development and understanding of individual rights has enabled us to prosper as we are today. It gives us a level of certainty. The law gives us a level of certainty that we are going to be safe in our productive endeavors so that we can produce and exchange without interference from force. So look, when Micheal says something about certainty, what he's saying is we need long-term thinking in a capitalist society. In any free society, you need long-term thinking. capitalism loves you. Is that to you or is that to me?
I think it's to the audience, not to us, but it's okay if you're self-centered because we've already established
I'm
that.
self-centered. I'm an actor. All right, so Mike has to get to his cleaning because he's killing us all with his halitosis. So we're going to be here same bat time, same bat place tomorrow.
And bring your questions tomorrow. Remember, bring your questions.
9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Let me finish my pitch. 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Bring your questions. It's Q&A day. We will also have news, of course, to fill in the time. But make sure your questions are serious, folks. This is not fun and games time. This is serious talk that we're doing here, even though we get derailed from time to time. And you've got 23 hours to check your premises, so get to it, folks. All right? Peace.